This video is brought to you by Dr. Kristen R. Bromley's Guitar Method Book Series and Online Music Academy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kristen Bromley. Welcome to my online academy. I love being here helping you with playing the guitar. In this video, I'm going to go over some tips and tricks for how to change the strings on a regular old steel string acoustic guitar. Now, this video does supplement the introductory section from my Chords and Harmony Books 1 and 2 Method Book, as well as my Note Reading Books 1 and 2 Method Book and my Tablature Method Book, which all have the same 6-page introductory section. With any of those books, if you turn to page 6, there is an explanation on how to change the strings of guitar. This video supplements that information. Okay, so as you're changing the strings of the guitar, the first thing you have to know is what types of strings to use to put on the guitar. There's a lot of different types of strings. There's nylon strings that go on classical guitars or nylon string guitars. There's steel string guitars, which are electric and acoustic. Steel string acoustic guitars usually use a bronze wound string, while steel string electric guitars usually use a nickel wound string or even pure nickel strings. So there's lots of different types out there. You're going to want to get a bronze wound string for steel string acoustic guitars. Amidst the different types of bronze wound strings, there's sort of two that are favored. 1820, which talks about the alloy mix that makes up that bronze variety of string, and phosphor bronze. I personally usually get phosphor bronze strings. I've used both. They're great, but for the sound that I'm going for, I usually use phosphor bronze. So you may need to experiment just a little bit and figure out which one you like best for you. The other thing you need to know is the size of the string. The way the size of the string, how thick each string is measured, is in thousandths of an inch. And we usually just refer to the whole set that we're going to put on a guitar based on what's on the top string. That's sort of how we refer to them. So size 10, gauge 12, gauge 13, gauge 11, that sort of thing is referring to the top string. The top string on a regular old steel string acoustic guitar, sort of the most go-to size is going to be .012, also known as 12 gauge strings, and then they're going to get larger as they go. So when you find on a pack of strings like I have here, you would need to find a .012 for that gauge. It's sort of the inner middle sort of size that just works the best, I think, with most acoustic guitars. You can go lighter. You can find an 11 gauge, maybe even a 10 gauge on acoustic guitars. Electric guitars, I will use a lighter gauge, but on a nice steel string acoustic, I almost always use 12 gauge. I have occasionally used 13s, but it gets a little heavy for my taste. So I recommend size 12 in most instances for most of us. Within the guitar strings, there are a lot of different brands you can find that have size 12 and the phosphor bronze or the bronze 8020. That's the best place to go to, at least as you're getting started. You could experiment with other things if you'd like to, but that's the go-to for these guitars. Today I'm putting a set of John Pierce strings. I like these strings. I use a lot of different ones. I love changing up things a little bit through a handful of different brands. Sort of gives me a fresh sound to my ear. Okay, so the other thing is, when do we change the strings on a guitar? Well, the companies, most of them recommend to not keep a set of strings on the guitar for more than 6 months, even if you're not playing it very much. And the reason for that is that as the string loses its elasticity, it pulls harder on the instrument to stay in tune. And so in a worst case scenario, and I've seen this happen, the gluing on the bridge pops off and the bridge ends up being pulled off. Or the neck may start to bend, so it pulls on the neck, and sometimes we have to make adjustments or fix those things. Now, I haven't had that happen for the most part with guitars that are just sitting around for 6 months. If you're going to have one sitting around and you're not going to use it, it's a good idea to just loosen the strings a little bit and not have them stay at their normal tuning. So 6 months, but otherwise I'm not generally thinking about that with my guitars. Usually it's when I'm playing them and they've lost the tone, they're not sounding as bright and as clear as I want them to, or they just feel gunky, or one breaks. When one breaks, it's definitely time to change the strings. And in most cases, when one breaks, I change the whole set. If I put them on brand new and they're all brand new and one breaks, I replace just that one. But if I've had them on for a little while and one breaks, it's time to change the whole set. And within the time frame, it usually for me is just how many hours I've got on the guitar and where those strings are at. So it's not a certain number of days, and I'm not even going to say a certain number of hours, because depending on the strings that I'm using and the sound that I'm listening for, if I'm using alternate tunings or whatever, they last and go a little bit longer. I'm bending the strings a lot. It just depends on the styles that I'm playing. So I just go by how I feel, how they sound, and when I'm ready for some new ones, or if one breaks. Okay, so we're changing the strings. Now with a steel string acoustic, it almost always has the bridge with these little plugs in it. Occasionally you'll find a steel string acoustic where you actually have the string going through the bridge somehow. It's more rare. So I pulled one up with the plugs because this is typically what we have to deal with. And of course we got the regular old tuning keys there on the left. When changing the strings, it can be really helpful, and I've got this guitar tipped up so you can see here in the video. Normally I'd have it laying down like so as I'm working on it. I do have a pad and a little neck brace here, a little cube that helps hold the guitar. That can be helpful. I haven't always had that, but especially here in these videos it's useful. When I'm changing a lot of them, it can be useful. But I've got it tipped up here so you can see a little better. When I'm changing the strings, I like to use a string winder. It makes loosening and tightening the strings go much faster. I even have one that will hook onto a little drill so you can go and use that nice battery operated screwdriver that has the attachment that will go over the Allen wrench type shape, or regular old drill that has that as well. But I've got a regular old string winder here. These are super inexpensive. I also have a pair of needle nose pliers. Some of the string winders that I have come with a little clip so we can clip the strings when we're done, but you're going to want one of those. And I usually grab an electronic tuner so that I can fine tune it instead of tuning relatively. As I'm changing these strings, they're not going to be as in relative tuning as I like. For me personally, I like to start on the inside strings. Generally speaking, you want to do one string at a time or two strings at a time. There's a lot of pounds of pressure that having these strings strung creates and pulls on the guitar. If you just loosen that all at once, it can cause the guitar to readjust some. So I like to change one at a time. That's especially important for guitars that don't have a truss rod running down the neck. This guitar does have a truss rod, so I have had to pull all 6 strings off, especially if I'm making adjustments on the neck, on the saddle, any of that, to sort of change the action, how low the strings are to the neck, that sort of thing. Then I got to pull them all off, make little adjustments. But generally speaking, it's best to only take 1 or 2 off at a time and try and minimize how often you take all 6 strings off. And that's especially important for guitars that don't have a truss rod, because you can't adjust them by moving that truss rod that runs through the neck. Okay, so here we are. The first thing to do is to take off a string. Now, I personally, my favorite thing is to start with the inside strings and move outwards. So I'm just going to go ahead and demonstrate here with the 4th string, and you find which one that is. And the first thing we do is, of course, loosen that string and take it all the way off. So I usually wind it until it's loose enough that I can go ahead and just pull it off the rest of the way. And then we pull it out just like so. So you've got the string. I'm going to lay the guitar down for just a moment. Then what we have to do is come back here on the back side, and we have to remove the plug. So there's a plug holding the string down into the guitar, and that plug just popped out, so that wasn't a very good demonstration. Okay, so I went ahead here for demonstration purposes and put that plug with the string back in that just happened to plop out from how I was pulling on the string with it. So that you can see with the string winder, all you do is fit right over that plug, and then you can pop it right out, pull the string out. Now the next thing we're going to want to do, of course, is put our new string down into that hole. So at the end that has the ball on it, I just feed that new string down into the hole, and I need to replace the plug. On the plug, there's going to be a side where there is just a little groove. That is where the string is supposed to come through. So you're going to want to line that up with the string. I go ahead and put the string down in the hole, and then take the plug and push it down over the top of it. And as I do, I sort of jostle or wiggle a little bit this string until I can feel it pop up. Sometimes what will happen is it gets stuck down below, maybe on the winding that's tying the string to that ball. It'll get stuck on that. I don't want that to happen. What I want is that ball to come up and be tight up as high as it can against this push down in the hole as far as it'll go. So that creates a nice solid hold on that string down the hole. So I'm going to feed it down in, and then I'm going to just wiggle it or jostle it a little bit until I can get it to come up as I'm pushing down, and I push down as hard as I can, and then I let that go. As I'm coming around to the other side, the important thing is that these strings come around the insides of the posts. Doesn't matter if you've got all 6 tuning keys on the top or the bottom here, whatever it is, we want to come through this inside part as we wrap around the post. So as I've got that string, I'm going to leave lots of slack, but I want to feed the string through the hole and make sure that as I'm wrapping it around, it goes around in a way that keeps this on the inside. What I usually do is bring the string through the hole. Then with my right hand, I come over, and what you want to do is leave enough slack that you're going to have a few wraps of the string around the post down here to help it hold in place. But I leave some slack, and then I come around, and above the string coming through, I wrap it around the post. And then I actually go below the string and wrap it around the post again. So what I have done is created a nice, secure wrap around the string coming out the hole. I've gone once above, and then I wrap it once below, making sure that as I wrap it, it comes around so it's leading off through the inside. It's wrapped around the inside of that post. Then with my hand, I'll just hold it in place with my finger, putting it in the little groove on the nut, and I'll take the string winder. Usually I've got this down being held there, but so you can see better, I'm holding it up, and I just start winding. When I do that, I usually have to hold this string up in the air. So I go ahead and I wind it around, tightening it and using my hands to sort of catch the slack. Otherwise it doesn't necessarily wind very easily and stay into place. Once I've got the slack taken out, I can go ahead and keep wrapping it. Now, for me, sometimes I've had these pop out, which means I didn't quite do that right. So I go back, I'd have to loosen it and fix that. But I make sure that that string is sitting in the groove in the saddle where I want it, so it's not off in some other place, but it's sitting nice there, snug, that's all in there. And then I just keep tightening the strings gradually. I personally like to keep an electronic tuner around, and I put it on the chromatic so I can just watch it go up to the space that it's supposed to be in. I also will tune by ear, but we're going for the D pitch, and I'd heard that we're getting close, and we are. We're just a little flat on that D, and there it is in tune. So it's just like that. Sometimes I'll go a little bit past. Sometimes I'll sort of just gradually tug on that string a little bit to let it start stretching out, but mostly I'll tune it right up to pitch or a little bit sharp as it stretches out. Once I've got that one done, then I've got to go ahead and do all 6 other strings. If my string up in the air, pointed straight up, isn't going to cause a problem, I leave it. If it's going to be in my way, a lot of times I'll just wrap it until I'm going to cut it afterwards. Now, when changing all 6 strings, I usually change all 6 strings and I play with it, get it so it's sort of staying in tune. I can see that none of the strings are slipping, nothing's going crazy, and then I go ahead and trim them. I'm going to go ahead here and show you my approach on trimming these strings so that you don't get stabbed. One of the unfun things, so this would be after I've got all 6 strings, I've played a little bit, I've got the strings sort of broken in, they're sounding good, and I'm going to go ahead and clip them. I use needle nose pliers, or some of my string winders have a little clipper on them. I go in and I get as close to that post as it'll allow me to get, and I go ahead and clip it, and I try and be careful not to damage the wood of the guitar. So sometimes the string is just a little bit longer, but I go ahead and clip that. And then what I do is I point that string down so that I don't get stabbed, because I've been stabbed enough by strings on the guitar and we don't want that to happen again. So it's as simple as that. You clip it off and you got that one there. I would do that personally again after I've changed all 6 strings, played it and start having those strings stay in tune, and I'm sure that we're ready to go and clip them off. Otherwise, I might need to restring it, and it's much easier to do that when I've still got the full length of the string there. Okay, so that's how to change the strings. That's some tips for you on a regular old steel string acoustic. There's another video on classical guitars, the nylon strings, because those are a little bit different. And electric guitars, they're a little bit different too. They have a slightly different bridge. All of them have a slightly different bridge, and some of them have a difference up here, and the strings respond differently. But that's the gist of it. It's not hard. It's actually an easy thing to do. Maintain your own guitar that way, and it's a lot cheaper to maintain your own guitar that way. Something that I tend to do once I've changed the strings of the guitar is I usually polish it up. So with this guitar, I would go ahead and spray some of this polish and then wipe it off and get it nice and clean. It's a good idea to do that periodically, so I usually do that when I change my strings. That's my own personal thing. With the different guitar polishes, you just want to find one, and it needs to be for guitars, that matches the type of finish your guitar has. So there's some different types of finishes on guitar. You want to make sure that the guitar spray, that cleaner, that polish that you're going to use matches the type of finish that you have on your guitar. Okay, hope that helps. Hope you're having fun playing the guitar. Take care, and I'll see you in more of these videos.
Thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to check out more great content. You can find more information about me and my products at KristenBromley.com. Take care.